Welcome to the Fishing Daily podcast, sponsored this month by Saltwater Marketing, digital marketing services for the commercial marine industry. Here's your host, editor of the Fishing Daily, Oliver McBride.
Welcome to the Fishing Daily podcast with me, Oliver McBride. Today I'm joined by Councillor Tudor Evans, OBE, from the Plymouth City Council. Welcome, Tudor.
Hi, Oliver.
Tudor, how did it all start? You know, you've been a councillor in Plymouth now for a while, and over the past years, you've become really involved in the fishing industry, and you've been involved around the harbour. How did it all start for you?
Well, it's interesting, you know, because Plymouth and fishing have got a very long history, right? Going back hundreds of years. But Plymouth City Council and fishing perhaps are not enjoying such a long, lengthy relationship. But I've been sort of getting more involved, and particularly before, just as the pandemic hit, becoming even more involved. But before that, started to talk to the fishing community about their problems. It was issues around things like safety, for example. It's the most dangerous peacetime occupation, fishing. And for a harbour like ours, with the boats that are coming out, where it's like small boats mainly, people who perhaps in the past haven't had a care for their health and safety. We had a tragic incident with loss of life out of Plymouth, and I met a fella, an RNLI fella called Cllr Palfrey, who we had a chat, and we were chatting about how do we stop this sort of thing happening, and we started talking about life jackets, you know. So he was basically saying that, you know, like if somebody goes overboard, it's very difficult for Coast Guard or RNLI to find people. I likened it a little bit to the Voyager spacecraft, you know. We know within a few centimetres where the Voyager spacecrafts are in space. If a fisherman goes over the side, we don't necessarily know where they are, and they could only be, you know, 30 minutes out of port. So the idea was that Clive came up with this idea of using personal locator beacons on life jackets. So if you go over, the number's unique to you. So the Coast Guard or the RNI would know where you were within a very short space of time, and quite accurately. In other words, taking the search at the search and rescue. And we all know, don't we, that, you know, if you can get somebody within half an hour, that's all the difference between them making it and not making it in many instances. So started with that project and adopted that project. I ran with that project, and actually in opposition, I managed to get the council to do it. And then when I got control of the council, having a second rollout. So we put hundreds of these things out around Plymouth for people who fish or land into Plymouth to save those lives. And it's as well as, you know, in even recovery of vessels in the worst of circumstances, you know, the understanding that for the families, closure, you know, if you can't find the vessel, it can be up to 7 years before the insurance pays out. The family can't just get another boat. And in 7 years, you know, a loss of livelihood can dramatically change a family's fortunes. So being able to be near to where the incident happened, being able to understand where the boat went down and therefore recover it, means that those closures around insurance, for example, can also be sorted out quite quickly in a timely manner to enable, you know, families to carry on that want to. And for the families ashore, that kind of thing, is very important. And so we got it's mainly women involved. They did a hashtag campaign on Twitter, wear it for them. In other words, to encourage the fishers to actually wear the gear, because there is sometimes a bit of a macho culture developing, around this. So by getting the wives and the mothers involved, saying, you might not want to do it for yourself, but you're doing it for us. Wear that jacket. Again, the take-up of it, and more importantly, the wearing of the gear, is way exceeded, the government, the old sea fish campaign, for example, where they just handed out life jackets, with not a care, but for actually the nature of the work that people do. I mean, this, but there's a world of difference between fishers who are working, pointing downwards, as opposed to fishers who occasionally have to hold things up as well. And the gear and the life jackets they have us to reflect that, but that wasn't the government scheme. So this one was much more bespoke, working with the fishers to have the right sort of life jacket and all of that kind of stuff. So what's happened now is that other councils have got behind it as well. Firstly here in the southwest, and then around the place. But that's all due to Palfrey, all due to him coming and us having a chat and me understanding and respecting him and what he did to save lives, and how much easier we could make it all around if this project got off the ground. And then, going down there to talk about that, talking about other issues, talking about the industry. I've been involved in economic development in Plymouth for a very long time, Oliver, right? And I know a lot of the sectors that we're really good at, the defence sector, electrical and mechanical engineering, lots and lots of marine tech and marine-based activity. But the council has never really got a relationship with the fishing community, and never really understood it as a sector, what the tensions were. Sometimes you see, fishing folk, I think it's fair to say, can be from time to time a bit grumpy. For councils, they tend to work better with people who aren't grumpy than people who are. But seriously, it's what we realised is we didn't really understand the sector. We didn't understand how it lived and breathed. We didn't understand the tensions. We didn't understand the pressures. And we have a much better idea about that now. It's still not perfect, but we're learning fast. And so what I've been doing is trying to encourage more councils in more coastal communities to get involved with their fishing communities and to see what they can do to help. Because
you're very respected for the work that you've done, and you're not from a fishing background yourself?
No, gosh, no. I'm actually from a mining and steel community in South Wales. I came down to Plymouth on holiday once. Well, it was a day trip, actually. We were staying down the road in Paynton, I think it was. And, it was my one and only encounter as a kid with fishing was going mackerel fishing with my dad when we were on holiday down there, right? But that's about it. I'm not an angler. I'm certainly not a fisherman. But what I do have is respect for people who do it. Because, even on a calmest of days, the water's, not that friendly. It's a dangerous place. And especially, as I say, for the fishing community, they take bigger risks than most. But no, I came down here when I was 18 to study at the Polytechnic, and I stayed. It has an effect on you, Plymouth.
Fascinating story to know that somebody who can come in from somewhere that's not related to fishing, can come in and do so much work for it. And right around the country, do you think that other councils should get involved in their fishing harbours?
Well, absolutely. And of course, there are huge variations around the country with the ownership of facilities on quayside. and some are council owned, some are CICs, some are private owned. You know, there's a huge variety of these things. But what they all have in common is they have local authorities that probably don't do as much as they could. You know, they do, some do a lot, some do very little. And I think it's, now I understand the pressures, now I understand all the intricacies of it. I feel, as because I'm well connected with the local government association in England and Wales. Okay, so I'm on the board of the LGA, and I see it as my job to sort of spread the word, if you like, to try and encourage more and more councils to take more and more interest in the work of their local fishing community. I mean, it come to the point where in Plymouth, we had a better relationship with chewing gum manufacturers than we did with the fishing community. Yet our histories are entwined. You know, I mean, there's a classic story about Plymouth having, during the Civil War, having a siege where we were virtually starved out. And we were actually saved by fishermen going out and harvesting loads of pilchards from the big run of pilchards coming up into Plymouth Sound, and it saved Plymouth from starvation. So we go way back. But the way in which the relationship was developed is we probably didn't see it as an important a sector as it actually is. And it's a sector that's got, you know, 1,000 around the quayside, and many, many more related off key. And so it's a sector that's important. And whatever you think about Boris Johnson's Brexit deal, fishermen were promised a golden age after Brexit of opportunity, changes to quota and bycatching and all the other stuff. And of course it hasn't happened. But we want to be ready when, you know, when the opportunity does arise, to make sure the place is in good nick so they can take advantage if there's an advantage to be taken. The trouble is, as I say, is it's not a sector that's particularly glamorous. You know, it doesn't have a lot of shiny stuff. It doesn't have as much innovation, perhaps, as other sectors. And so, you know, it doesn't get the attention that it deserves. So I'm trying to spread the word. I keep raising fishing issues at local government association board level. I try and make a nuisance of myself in that respect, because it's an important industry. It has been an important industry and will be an important industry. But, you know, as an island nation, it's important, isn't it? You know, if you've got all this protein swimming around you, to get some of it out of the water and get it onto people's plates. And
for the part of the fishermen themselves, how do you think fishermen should go about approaching their local councils about, you know, getting them more involved in the and the communities?
Yeah. So I think it's really important for everybody to know that, you know, their local councillor is the gateway to them getting in the council involved. So, you know, I would always say, send an email to your local councillor, send an email to the local council leader, send an email to the chief executive, send an email to the economic development lead in there, whether that's the cabinet member or the senior officer responsible. Just make yourself known. Make yourself known and make the power of the fishing community and the ancillary trades known. Like I say, you would, because everybody around the harbour pretty much keeps themselves to themselves, you wouldn't know unless you really ask, because they, you know, they're out at sea, you know what I mean? If it's a good day, they're out. And so it's that thing around, you know, have I got the time? Well, I'd say make time. You know, it takes 2 minutes to send an email to somebody. and say, you know, invite them down the harbour, invite them down to see you at the quayside, invite them to your house so you can talk about stuff. Tell them what it's like and tell them the challenges. You know, they will be interested to know about it. And, you know, like I say, now I understand it a bit more. You know, it's revelatory, really, because unless you do know about it, you don't think about it. You don't think about how that fish is caught. And what it has to go through to get from where it was caught to being on your plate, and all the processes in between, and all the care that's got to be taken of the product and stuff like that, and what that means and what that needs, right? So, you know, in the same way, you know, people who make, I don't know, ice cream don't have this problem in making their voices known. People who make cardboard boxes or medical instruments or luxury yachts, they don't have problems telling councils and councillors that they need to be heard. So fishermen shouldn't think they're any different. And coastal communities, you know, thrive on these industries, and those coastal communities are poorer when they disappear. We've seen that happen in a number of places, too many places. And so political intervention at its best can actually preserve these industries, actually, and get them in a position where they thrive. So it's worth the effort, and it's worth making a fuss, and it's worth raising the issue. Because once you pass that responsibility to them by informing them, they're on the hook, as it were. If you don't do that, they've got an excuse. So I would say, make sure that councils know the value of your sector, that they know the value of the business that it brings in to the town or the city, or whatever the location is, and why they need, you know, why they need your help, or why you need their help, I should say, and what they can do to get the industry revived and thriving. As I say, they do it for other sectors. Fishing's no different. I mean, you wouldn't have this conversation in Somerset about dairy farming, right? Because everybody knows about it, right? And, you know, and so it goes on, and Dorset the same, and all these other places, right? You know, and the reason is there's a strong relationship between the practitioners and the politicians. I don't mean a cozy relationship, I mean a strong relationship where people know the state of play, and this fishing's no different. I just think fishing has got to get a bit better at it, you know. I think that's what we're trying to do. I think that's what I'm trying to do to the industry. I'm also doing it from the other side. I'm trying to get councils to understand why they should get involved in fishing as well. If there's any fishing going on in their local community, why they should care and why it matters, right? And you know, whether we're talking about, you know, the come-in issues around climate change, zero carbon, the state of the oceans, ocean recovery, seagrass, you know, whether we're talking about ghost gear, there's loads of things that local authorities can apply their minds to and work with the industry and the well, it's more than the industry, it's a calling, isn't it, really? You know, to try and make, because everybody's interested in making sure that the environment's, you know, good. You know, I mean, you know, the most passionate advocates for the ocean and keeping it clean are fishermen. I mean, you know, they are, and you know, I want to do their bit. So there's no conflict between the needs of a vibrant fishing industry and climate and ocean health going forward. I think that we're all using the same resource. So again, I want to make sure that that's on the agenda of local government. So that's why, I mean, it's great to see Fishmongers Hall, for example, you know, taking a space at this year's Local Government Association conference in Harrogate. First time it's happened, I think. So we'll have all these councillors from all over the country, you know, who's going to be it'll be a massive stand there, so we can start to get our conversation going between particularly councillors from coastal communities about why they should get involved and how they can help their fishing communities, because they're all voters as well. I was the same. Got to remind people of that.
So, Tudor, do you think that somewhere along the line, fishing industry kind of got cut off from the rest of the mainstay industries and sort of was too isolated, working on their own?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know what happened. You know, I mean, no doubt the fishing industry. I mean, you know, the owners and stuff. I mean, it's all difficult, isn't it? The individual fishers themselves and that. You know, I mean, the last few years have been a bit weird with the Brexit thing, right? You know, it's wasn't so much dialogue, was it, as sort of megaphone diplomacy on all sides, right? So, but I mean, in the context for local councils working with the industry, it's much more of a symbiotic relationship. I mean, like I say, you know, the fishing industry does bring value, brings jobs, brings prosperity, brings history and tradition and all those other things, right? I mean, you know, people whose only encounter with the fishing industry would be maybe to go to a Cornish fishing village and see people tending the crab pots or the lobster pots or whatever it would be. You know, it's a memory. It's a memory. And you know, that's genteel. That's not shouty and aggressive, right? But I mean, you know, what it's about for me is encouraging people to sort of start working in partnership for the benefit of the old community. And then, you know, if the community loves the fishing industry will thrive. So it's trying to, you know, I mean, like when the pandemic hit, it was really hard, you know. I mean, for me as a local politician, you know, thinking, what the hell can we do? And then I got told that all the restaurants were closing. And with that, most of the market for local fish was closing. You know, what do we do? What do we do? And so practically, you know, getting involved in something like Call for Fish, that's again a practical demonstration of how local politicians working with the fishing industry can actually help tremendously. You know, I mean, the Call for Fish story, I'm sure your viewers and listeners know, was a sort of collaborative effort by merchants and fishmongers and the fishers themselves. My council backed it as well with a little bit of money, but nothing much, because it was very cost effective. You know, what we're doing here is we're trying to get, if we can't go to market, we'll bring the market to the doorstep. So, you know, turning people into door-to-door sellers with fish, you know, delivers fish, brilliant, overnight, just like that, and help people get by, you know. And that was because, you know, there was kind of an understanding that something needed to happen and help needed to be done. You know, everybody knows the retail community needed help, and everybody around the UK did that. You know, of course we knew that the retail sector was in trouble, but how many people actually knew the fishing industry was in trouble, and how many people actually helped? Now, I think, you know, as the advent of Call for Fish, if you look at it now, it started off in Plymouth, you know, nationwide. And it shows that actually a good idea can travel very well. And a good idea, you know, backed by a local council that wanted to be active in that space. So there's a real role for this. And I hope in some way we've sort of been a pathfinder for people to understand how they can be practical help. So I'm pleased about that. And so it's not all about marching and placard waving and that. Actually, it's about relationship building. You know, that's the essence of local politics for the council and the people they serve, right? It's, you know, it's about collaboration, it's about understanding people, and it's about trying to respond in a positive way to making changes. Because we're all here just to make everybody's life better, right? I mean, nobody gets elected on a platform of, do you know what, I want to make it bad for you. And so, you know, what we're about is, you know, what do people need and can we help? And, you know, councils, even the one, you know, we're all in financial difficulties, councils at the moment. It's not the easiest time for us either, but it's about priorities. Politics is the language of priorities, right? So it's making sure that politicians understand the urgency and the need for support.
Mr. Tudor, moving on to the current issues that's happening around the Plymouth Harbour. The Fishing Daily had covered a bit of news down that way, particularly with the situation of fuel and ice. Have you had a visit with the new Conservative leader? How did it go? What happened?
Yep, we met on the day I'm recording this with you. We had a visit. We met Plymouth trawler agents who were upgrading their facility, spending a fair bit of money on a new digital system for their auction house, which I'm sure there'll be a story about in due course, because it's, you know, once again, Ali and Dave Pestle are kind of going, ooh, you know, doing some, I spoke about innovation earlier on, well, they are innovators. Anyway, so we met some boat owners and tenants of Sutton Harbour. I mean, there's two main problems at the moment, if I'm honest. I mean, I don't want to go into absolute details of this, but there's a real issue at the moment about the price of red diesel down the harbour there, and the price, you know, there's a considerable difference between what they're paying in Plymouth compared with neighbouring ports. And what we're worried about is people are going to vote with their feet. And you put that together with the problems of the ice plant. The ice makers are right at the moment, but I mean, it's never produced really great ice. It's always more used to Tom Cruise in Cocktail than a fisherman, to be honest. But I mean, nevertheless, it is what it is. But it's the delivery system for it. As there's a gearbox, I think, gone, and it's going to take weeks to repair. So what it means is you can have ice, but you've got the time taken to load it, and is it going to be safe to load? And we're saying, you know, simple things they could be doing. They could have somebody on the quayside ready to help the fishers, because it's like some of these people that got one or two people and that's it, right? And they can make a hopper, and then it'll be over and done with. But no, it's the long way around, as usual on everything. And so took the new leader of the council down to have a look at that, just to explain, you know, why this wasn't very good for the fishing industry, why it was no help, why it was making things more difficult, more expensive, really digging into profit margins. Well, actually into wages, because of the way people are paid. You know, it's a net off, isn't it, with what they catch and how they operate the boats. So, you know, we gave that a real good review. So I mean, fair play to the fella. It's only day 3 of his time in office, and he came down to see us. So that was really important. I mean, I wrote to him within half an hour of him being elected, so I didn't waste any time in putting the issue in front of him. But that's because it's a clear and present danger right now for the viability of some of those fishing businesses. So he needed to understand that the council should be moving heaven and earth to get the company that owns the harbour to do more, do it better, do it bigger, do it faster, right? And so we've had that conversation this morning. Whether anything will happen, I mean, I hope it will. Because I can guarantee you this, that if nothing happens, I will be making a real fuss about that. Because, you know, there's beautiful pictures of fishing down the years in Plymouth Museum. And it would be tragic, wouldn't it, if the only pictures left of Plymouth fishing were in that museum and there wasn't anything around contemporary. And that's what we're facing, you know, it's as serious as that. And yeah, we need a resolution to this pretty quick, I think.
2 years since the COVID lockdown started, and earlier on we're talking about the Call for Fish initiative, and part of that initiative that you have sort of taken on yourself is the tuck-in with tutor videos. So now you've got well over 100, is it, videos done at this stage? And we have to say a big congratulations to you for, you know, keeping going and promoting UK fish, and it's for fish people who love fish everywhere, like, you know. So you think there's any more the government could do in this regard?
Well, I mean, you know, I mean, those videos, I record a Facebook Live, so I cook live, right? Scary stuff, I know. And then they're uploaded to Call for Fish's channel under the Tuck in with Tudor sort of badge. And I really enjoy that, you know. It's a bit of practical help that I can give. You know, we started off on the basis that if this idiot can cook fish, then anybody can, right? So that was the premise of this. So my dishes, you know, are quite simple. It's, you know, 20 minutes or less is my target time. I'm trying to show that, you know, I've got no great skill or anything, or, you know, I'm no skill. So, you know, I get it as the fishmonger sends it to me. You know, if I don't want to look at that bit, I ask them to cut it off before they send it to me. It's all of that kind of stuff, right? So, you know, it's lots, you know, lots of fillets, occasionally bone in and all that kind of stuff, whole turbot, blah, blah. But what's good about it is, you know, I've had a really good reaction, you know, from it, particularly from the local fishing community, Oliver, you know. They came to scrutiny when we did a scrutiny on fishing and Brexit, and they talked about my videos. And one fisherman said, you know, Tudor, it's what you've done is you've made people, you've shown people not to be afraid of the fish. And sometimes, you know, I don't appreciate this, but it is a barrier for people. It's unfamiliar. Sometimes it comes with bits of the animal still attached, and people get a bit, you know, worried about that. But I mean, our grandsons, you know, I mean, they can pinbone mackerel now. They can fillet fish, and they're 8 and 6, and you know, so you know, it's not that difficult. It's like anything else, practice. But all I've tried to do is to explain to the locals that they should buy more fish, buy more local fish. We got a lot of, you know, we're on the verge of, you know, we're building a sustainable fishery here in Plymouth, right? And if we can get these survivors, these small boat people through this, I think we've got a great future ahead of us, you know. And, you know, we want more people to eat more fish. We used to, but we've gone off it. And it's an easy way back, you know. It's just showing people that, you know, you can have supper on the table within 10 or 15 minutes of you coming in through the door. And what can beat that?
Peter, why should people visit Plymouth? In 2022, is there anything coming up that would be great for people to go and see?
Oh yeah, there's some great stuff. So year before last, during the pandemic, we opened the Box, which is a £47 million cultural centre, museum, art gallery, archive. We've just seen the first ever exhibition of native Australian art, Aboriginal finger paintings, which came over, the first time it's ever been outside of Australia, only available to see in the UK, in Plymouth, and now on its way to, I think, 2 venues in mainland Europe. We've got the National Figurehead collection here, 14 beautifully restored naval figureheads hanging from the ceiling as you come in the door, a top-class restaurant offer, and some really, really interesting and a lovely video about fishing, a great film where voices from the fishing community are speaking authentically. And there's one guy, he said, "What's heaven like?" He says, "Heaven is when every day is landing day." And I think that's a great thing. I mean, that film's really emotional, right? I mean, there's a lot of emotion in this because it's about Plymouth. But actually, and it's a lot of stories in Plymouth are national stories, you know, from Plymouth. Drake sailed, we all know about that. Captain Cook sails, Darwin sailed, Francis Chichester going around the wrong way on around the world on his own, and hundreds of adventures. So come and see that. This summer we'll have Sail GP, which is like Formula One racing for boats in probably the best natural amphitheatre in Europe, Plymouth Sound. That's free of charge. There's going to be British art shows coming. It's only the second time. We're the only city that's ever had it twice. So it's back after 10 years, and now we've got the box to show it off. Massive, brilliant festival of contemporary art. And then, of course, there's Plymouth Sound, which we recently designated as the UK's first national marine park. There's no model for it in the UK, no legislation, but we are starting to, in a most conflicted set of water it's possible to envisage. We've got, as of right now, we've got spearmint the seal, we've got paddleboarders, wild swimmers, nuclear submarines, commercial cargo ships, and fishing boats, and all of which, below which are 1,000 species of animals and plants. And so Plymouth Sound National Marine Park is our project to get the people surrounding the park, the people who live in Plymouth all the time, to get back in touch with the reason they're here in the first place, which is that water. It's a project around accessibility. It's a project about democracy and engagement. And it's also a project about tackling climate change. Because the one thing in Plymouth, you can see the horizon, you know, and yes, the tide rises and falls, but actually, you know, sea level is rising. And so the whole project really will enable us to have real conversations in real time about climate change, about ocean recovery and all of these other things. So getting people back in. Oh, and the British Fireworks Championship, which takes place in August over 2 nights, which is a spectacular free event in Plymouth Hoe. It takes place after dark. People book their holidays around it. It's so spectacular. That's just some of the things we've got going on. We've got a whole programme of world-class events, which we always have. Oh yes, and there's the Guinness World Record attempt this year to try and get the most mermen and merwomen in one place at one time. And we're going to try and beat the record. Don't ask me what it is, but we'll be taking over Tinside Pool in the beginning of June to try and make a rather dramatic photo and world record attempt happen. So that's just some of the fun in Plymouth. But do visit the website, visit plymouth.org.uk, and you'll see everything we got coming in.
Well, thank you very much for joining us today, Tudor. It's been very interesting, and hopefully now it'll be a great summer for the city, and wishing us all the luck with it.
Well, thank you very much, Oliver. It's been great to talk to you, and I do hope we can win through on our campaign to get a better deal for fishing and fishermen in the city, and I hope that our work to try and persuade the rest of the country's councillors to get behind their local industry is successful too. The future of the industry depends on it. It's a lot of hard work, it's dangerous work, and those people out there risking their lives deserve our support. So thank you.